Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, what I wanted to do today is to get the ball rolling with what I see to be the other half of this project. So, thus far, I made a few videos about language and the word most generally. I'm going to continue doing this. And if you saw the last video, I began to introduce this idea that the word is not just thinking or speaking, but by the word, we mean something cosmological. The idea that in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. The word is something divine. It's a cosmogenic principle, if you want to use a fancy word. That is a cosmos generating principle. The word is that which underlies all things. Over here, we really mean the mystical idea of the Logos. I'll write that down. We might also speak of a mystical letterism. Let's put that here. Letters. The idea that, well, let's put it this way. In our current understanding of science, of the material world, we understand things to be composed of smaller things, of their building blocks. Everything we see before us is composed of matter. And ultimately, matter reduces to molecules and really to atoms. Well, now we go even far, far below that, but let's stop at atoms for a bit. The word atom in Greek literally means that which is undividable or undivisible. It's the smallest building block which cannot be divided anymore. That from which and by which all other things are made. I say that because that is exactly how the logos, the divine word is described. It is that by which and through which all things are made and created. The idea that God creates through divine speech, and therefore that all things are modulations of speech, that the entire world before us is a matrix of symbols, a matrix of words. Right, you have the expression in Arabic, kun, kun fayakun, kun, be, be. To say to a thing be, and it is. Right? It is. Existence comes about through this divine word which speaks the thing into being. Then you might say, okay, well, for a thing to be spoken into being, it implies that the thing is somehow there. So this is an ancient idea. It goes into, or at least Plato said it best, that all things began first as immutable ideas in the mind of God, eternal, immutable archetypes, which God then speaks into being. So, by this, the word of God, we mean the essences of things, the eternal ideas of things in the mind of God. And God then speaks them into being by the breath which blows out. Even as I speak now, I take ideas within me and I communicate them through the fabric of breath into time and into space and into the medium of air by which it flows forth and is communed therefore unto your ear. And so God speaks from within himself, from within the unfathomable, infinite, eerie of the divine essence, in which all meanings are beheld. God speaks forth by the fusion and emanation of his divine life-giving breath, which creates and infuses the world before us. And going back to the idea now of atoms, right? We have this idea that all things are composed of atoms. So that may be in the physical world. But what, therefore, are the atoms of the spiritual world? And we have before us the periodic table, the idea that there are different atoms, irreducible elements. And these elements then compose into things. So you might ask, what are these elements of creation? And I'll put over here our dear and beloved friend Plato, the idea of divine ideas. Let's put divine idea archetypes right in the mind of God. Being made / created by and through this the divine breath, which is well, speech is breath, right? As we said before. So I'll put the emanation of the divine breath into the created world. So this is the process of creation which we behold before us in every second. In every moment we witness the splendor of the Godhead effusing and creating and making. All things before us are created in the image, the form of what is eternal and uncreated. What are those uncreated elements from and through and by which all things are made? What are these irreducible atoms, which must be these ideas? What are these utmost ideas? The ideas, therefore, which are one with God and of God. That is this doctrine of letters, that ideas are words. By the word of God, we don't mean a word as a communication. But as I said before, there are different words, different dimensions of the word. There's the word as something articulated and now traveling through space, which is heard by you. But that is the communication, the representation, the symbol of the word. But also, there is the word, which is a thought. Before I articulate, I have literally the thoughts of all these words and sentences inside of my mind. I see a sentence within me, in my brain, which is then communicated. But even before that, before the words begin to form into linguistic structures in my mind, I must have first the meanings, the pure, intuited, witnessed meanings of things. Before I can even speak about, or I speak about words, about language, before I can even think about these things, I must have known these things, because I cannot think about something which I do not know. Those are the ideas, even before the mind, before the brain. Something in the spirit, something uncreated, but purely witnessed. So these words are ideas. And to ask what the elements of creation are, is to ask, what are the elemental words? What are the elements of words? What are all words made of? And those are the letters. And truly, that is what we are therefore speaking about. The mystical doctrine of letters, that the periodic table, the spiritual periodic table. Yes, of course, there is a periodic table of elements, which speaks of the physical world, but the physical world itself is composed, is woven together from something more fundamental, which is the spiritual world, the world of ideas, right? Plato's world of archetypes before the temporal created world. And the elements of this spiritual world are the words, which primevally and primordially are letters, the letter words. So in the Quran, you have letters. For example, the first or the second chapter, surah, begins Alif Lam Mim. Three letters of the Arabic language. Alif, Lam, and Mim, which is like A, L, and M. It's not a word, purely letters. But the letters themselves have meanings. And now I don't need to tell you what the meaning of A, of Alif is. That's precisely the point. Words have communicable meanings. Words are meanings which we understand and cognize. But the meanings of letters are in a precognitive realm, which does not allow the mind to enter. That is the spiritual world. They cannot be spoken, but only known by the illuminative, penetrative gaze of the spirit. These are therefore the letters by which all things are become. They are the letters in the mind of God. And if you understand what the mystics and theologians have said concerning the word of God, it is that the word of God is not speech in the sense that we understand it, because that would be a multiplicity. But God is pure oneness. How can therefore some manifold of speech inhere in the august transcendence of divine oneness? No, but the word of God is this single transcendental letter, the letters themselves. One way to understand these, and these are called al-huruf al-muqatta'at, kind of like the broken or shattered letters. It's like splitting the atom. For we have the world before us, which we understood to be composed of atoms, and just thought we that these atoms are therefore the irreducible fundamental elements of creation, until the atom itself was cloven asunder by unfathomable magnitudes of energy hitherto unknown by the imaginations of man. But when this new quantum world was opened before us, when the atomic age began, we saw that there are unspoken mysteries before the world as we have known it, that even deeper than atoms, there are more atoms still. That is how I see these transcendental letters spoken in divine speech. Previously and hitherto, We thought that the word was the element of the sentence until some singular event of unimaginable, incommunicable power, a communion with the august infinite itself, weighed down so heavily that it shattered the atom, it split the atom of the word into letters. So to behold these letters is like beholding the quantum glue from which atoms are put together. At that high level, it does not last for a long time. You can't simply split the atom and there it is. It's unstable. It's so high powered that the atomic constituents don't really subsist by themselves. They naturally coalesce together. So as it is that it is only in some remarkable spontaneous moments of divine alacrity and intuition that we behold these letters. And also we may behold these letters in our lives betwixt certain moments of incommunicable mystical experience, which we experience to be some everlasting quiet, which may span eons but in 1 second, as when we walk through the park or through some meadows, and we alight upon some forest glade, and we look upon the stillness, the crystalline shimmering blue of the water, the resplendent gaze or glaze of the sun, shining and shimmering. And in but one small moment, it is as if we are one with this stillness of things. And we perceive the infinite and awful harmony of nature around us. So those moments are like the letters of our lives, which otherwise are composed into words and sentences, the words and sentences of the days and the week. And usually we will go through life sleepwalking, as if we aren't even aware of the individual hours and minutes and seconds. We awake, and next thing we know, we are in bed. The whole day has gone by like one moment, because the day itself was a sentence. And ordinarily, we do not cognize the sentence at the word level, because we have not the time nor the energy. And if we do, if we live through the hour by hour, or even minute by minute, even more rarely and seldom do we live the second and the moment. The moments of our lives are the letters of our lives. They do not come all that regularly. They are rare. They do fit and flitter, but they are there. And to study the word in its in its greatest and most elevated aspects, and in the most noble and consecrated frame, is to behold in mystical apperception the meanings of these letters. And how these letters form by the divine breath from betwixt the mystery of the divine essence, the august darkness of the divine essence. Dark, not because it is hidden from light or absent therefrom, but because it is the source of all light and all existence. And the source of a thing can never be that thing, but must lie beneath it, as the source of all water are the fountainheads of the earth, which are in the depths of the earth. And so these letters he formed by the breath of God into words and into sentences. These words and sentences, which are the atoms, the molecules, the genetic codes, the cells, the organisms, the ecological systems and cycles, and communities and harmonies and manifolds which we see before us. The entire cosmos is crowned and generated and made by these transcendental letters, which are the utmost words of God, or rather, the word of God in its highest capacity. So I think I shall leave this here, or rather just split this apart into two, because I wanted here to speak about letters, but also numbers. And where I'm going with this is to create two series side by side in which we study letter and number, meaning and structure. And that these two poles of duality, like day and like night, together they shall span the great globe of our lives. And together, in this mystical alchemical marriage of these two fundamental substances of essence and substance, by the coalescing of these two poles, the unison and reconciliation, because truly there is only unity, and all duality has come from unity, and to unity shall return. From this reconciliation of these two halves back into their whole, we shall arrive at some witnessing of that oneness which is before and in all things. And therefore shall we attain unto some spiritual illumination, and ultimately thereby attain unto happiness within ourselves. For the happiness of the self is the wholeness of the self. Because happiness is only a word for health and harmony and wholeness and fullness. For happiness is the innate perfection of things. A thing is happy in itself. A thing is happy as it is. For a thing is happy through itself, through the innate glory of what it is, because all things were made in the image of God, and God rejoices in his own glory and his own magnificence. And the perpetual delight of God is that he is who he is, that he is named by the infinite, numberless names of all things. And so all things being in his image made also rejoice by that innate perfection in which they were made. And so to bring things together, especially for the two to become one, that is happiness. And that is wholeness and harmony and oneness, and therefore happiness. And so we shall continue these two journeys, these two streams in twain, in parallel and tandem, until we may bring them together. But for now, I shall cast this video here upon this shoreless ocean as a prolegomenon and introduction into this greater spiritual work which is to come.